Redlands people have always been service-oriented, all the way back to the very beginning of the university. So we just thought there was a better way to organize service so students would know more what their options were, and people would even have, ideally, career-related experiences, which indeed has happened. So we decided to create the Community Service Learning Office.
We started on a little nugget of an idea from Char Burgess, our dean of students, who said, let's open a volunteer office and have students go off campus and volunteer. And it was really foreign to me to think in those terms. And it was at the precipice of a national service learning movement. I mean, it was the perfect time for that to happen.
We envisioned the Community Service Learning Office, and together we made it happen. And we were just really proud of it.
So we've had thousands of students go through our program, and it's almost all been positive. And they've served all over the world. They've done things that they wanted to do, even though it's a graduation requirement from their school. Their student voice while here was really important. So they got to practice things like working in hospitals and nursing homes, animal shelters, working with children if they're going to be a teacher. And the outcome of a lot of those things set the tone for the rest of their lives. I'm proud of working at a university that embraced a public service requirement, one of the first to do so in the state of California.
Over the last 15 years, we've had hundreds of projects.
They all stemmed from a student's idea and a student coming in and caring about something or being invested in something, or maybe they were involved in a club on their campus. And there's not one thing that we can't trace back to a student that started it. And I joke, sometimes the best thing you can do is just get out of their way and support them as they work through a process. But that's one thing I love, is that it really is student-driven. And a program may have started with a student's idea, and then it's just continued to build and evolved because other students come in and pick up and believe in that work.
One would be tree stock. So for tree stock, we had students using GIS to identify communities without shade in Southern California. Then they looked at the demographics of those communities, where the schools were located, what kind of plants or trees might survive in those environments. And by layering this information into a map, we could see where we should plant trees so that these communities could have shade. This is a really fun and important project that we spent a year working on with CSL.
Some of the things that I was involved with was starting Jasper's Corner Homework Club, where there was a need in the community where parents were seeking college students to help their kids with homework help. So we opened a center on campus. We started out in the bottom floor of Hunsaker, maybe with 6 or 8 tutors. As that program grew, we went into the library with maybe 20 tutors. We're able to see more kids in the community. And then it continued to grow where we have off-site Jasper's Corner Homework Club. So it's been a fun process to see that bloom.
I actually started off with CSL. I was a transfer student. And so for me, trying to find that place, that belonging, that sense of home in a small private university can be challenging. And so for me, I started off with Jasper's Corner, which is a homework tutoring club.
One of the beauties of service learning is connecting people, because you're connecting people to new friends, you're connecting people to new opportunities, you're connecting people to great causes. And I think that's what makes it work so very well, because Redlands people are inclined toward that kind of opportunity.
And then of course there are all those programs that have existed for, some of them 20 to 30 years, like Big Buddies. This is something that we as an institution have created. It has been around for, basically as long as community service learning has, and it has impacted so many lives. I actually hear from people all over town, because they recognize you when you work at the university or you work in community service learning, and people will come to me and be like, oh my gosh, Big Buddies, I loved Big Buddies so much. And they remember these things. They remember tossing a football with their mentor, or they remember going to Knott's Berry Farm or Disneyland, or, you know, having the bingo night where we give them way too much popcorn. But it's just a really impactful experience overall.
I had 2 stints in the Office of Community Service Learning. My first was as a first-year student. I was a preschool teacher's aide at the local Head Start, which served our community on the north side of Redlands. I reported up to that program through Tony and the CSL office, but it was my work study job to go help and mentor these young 5-year-olds, and I just absolutely loved it.
As the director of children's programs, I have the privilege of working side by side with student leaders to sustain and administer and really manage our community programs for youth outreach, and that includes everything from Jasper's Corner Homework Help Club to Big Buddies mentorship programs to Champs College and High School Alliance mentorship program and UHOP, our university humor outreach program. It really is incredible to see these students commit and dedicate all their time through their academic careers to sustaining these programs for our greater Redlands community.
I think what happened was it ingrained in me a service culture. What Tony Mueller and the CSL office did is they get you to think through, how service can be a part of your everyday life.
I had a great experience working in the Office of Community Service Learning. I served as the director of the Big Buddies program as an undergrad, and then as the assistant director of Community Service Learning. I just remember all the great times with Tony Mueller, so many great talks in his office. He provided so much guidance and mentorship. And then I remember as the assistant director, we would go about once a week, go to dinner at Redlands Family Restaurant, and we would just talk and laugh. He's really the funniest person I know, so I just enjoyed those times with him.
I started working with the Community Service Learning Office as a freshman when I attended the university. So I started in a children's programs called Big Buddies. I never ended up leaving. I then came back as the coordinator of children's programs. CSL impacted me in so many ways. I can't really see my life without service. And I always loved doing service when I was a kid, and my parents really had service as a part of me growing up. But I think once I took a professional role in service, it really changed my perspective on it, and I just really can't see my life without it. We took the kids in Big Buddies to Disneyland, and seeing some of them light up and realizing that some of them never got this experience. And I grew up going to Disneyland my whole life, and knowing that I was giving this gift to kids who had never gotten to experience this was a really magical moment for me.
When I started, I was just immediately impressed by the amount of engagement our students had in the Redlands community. I was born and raised here, and really had no idea how ingrained the UFR was into the work that was happening all throughout the city and even beyond. Whether it was traveling with students or just sometimes the magic of one small service learning experience can have on a person's life is pretty incredible. I love our students, and they tend to be incredibly good and compassionate, and when you leave this place with them, people love them, and they just are such good stewards of who we are as an institution.
I am fortunate to be able to interact with all the students, most of them that come through the office, as well as seeing our partners and the nonprofit agencies that we deal with in the community. The highlight for me actually is also being able to become part of the students' lives when they come through our office and see how they continue to grow and like through social media know what they've been doing and all the great accomplishments they continue to do after they graduate from the University of Redlands.
I think it's important to mention the support we've had from faculty and the faculty assembly and individual faculty like Kathy Jenny and Mara Winnick and Laurie Finson and all of the folks who really embrace the idea of service learning. Because when students may not feel comfortable doing service on their own, it was great to have faculty touchstones teaching courses that built service around their curriculum and enhanced their classes.
The Children's Fund distributes about $3 million in San Bernardino County to the neediest of children, children in the worst of circumstances. They need a way to evaluate which programs are having the biggest impact. So we worked with the Office of Community Service Learning and a team of students and an alum, an executive in program evaluation to design those vehicles for them so they could best decide where to invest those $3 million each year and where that money was most making a difference. What's exciting about the work that we do with CSL is you see students' transformation. They say at the end of the semester that they had no idea that one person could make a difference. They tell us that they had no idea there were people who had dedicated their lives to improving their communities. And they see themselves, our students, as being able to play some role in addressing very complex problems in our society. They've grown their confidence. They better understand how changes can be made and addressed. It's a wonderful liaison working with CSL. It provides our students experiences that makes them different when they graduate. They are a different student, a different job applicant because of these projects and the work we do.
I've had so many memorable highlights, and I've only been in this position a year, so I can only imagine what is next. I will say that I had the opportunity to be an instructor for a May term specialty topics course, Into the Streets, a course that has been around for 30 years, introducing students to community engagement and service projects throughout the Redlands community. And being able to work with these students as a group, as individuals, and engage them in the process of community service learning has been a real privilege to see them grow as individuals, as students, and to be able to ignite that flame that really gets them excited about engaging with their broader communities.
One of my favorite experiences was opening an intergenerational tutoring center for foster youth who had experienced severe neglect and abuse. It was one of those moments where Tony listened and heard me say, I think this is something we should do, and he let me run with it, and I'll never forget that experience.
For me, a memorable highlight would be sitting in on some of the reflection sessions, which Tony would invite me to do, and listening to students talk about what service meant to them, sometimes how disdainful they were that it had been assigned to them, and then after they had their service project, how excited they were about what they did, and how some of them went into careers related to teaching or to working with children, and they never thought that that would be something they would want to do. I think also hearing students talk about the opportunity they had in Salzburg to rebury the ashes of some of the Holocaust victims and what that meant to them very, very deeply. It was very, very meaningful.
Sometimes people think about community service and they think about, global issues, and that's all fantastic and good. But I think students also need to understand, and our community members need to understand, that there are examples for people to get involved and to make your community a more special place, a cleaner place, a safer place, a more just place. That there are those opportunities in your backyard and in your region. And so that's what it ingrained upon me, and it got me focused on what can I do to be a better citizen. And ultimately, I felt that public service was an avenue to be helpful.
My community service learning experience has impacted me both professionally and personally. I would say professionally, I try to approach my work with the same level of selflessness and humility that Tony really embodied. And then personally, Tony had so much confidence in me when I was working there, and really made me believe in myself. And recently I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and there was a lot of negativity, and there were not a lot of people that believed in me. And I really held on to that, and I think it really helped me get through a tough time and just believe that I could recover and regain my health.
I also want to say how fortunate I've been to be able to work with Tony Mueller for these years and to really see his vision for developing the office and all that we've accomplished through the years and how much of an impact it has made on our community as well as the University of Redlands.
I am extremely proud of what Tony has gone on and done with it. He's just a golden person, and he has managed to create a program that achieved the level of faculty commendation such that it became a part of the curriculum. And that's not an easy thing to do.
All of the programs that we run were student initiated. And so they graduate and leave them behind, but they leave behind these legacies of programs that are really important for the generations that follow them. Some of them are 20, close to 30 years old. We kind of owe everything to the student body here. After more than 30 years, it's been remarkable to see what a part-time volunteer office can turn into, and that when embraced by the university community, how many lives can be affected by it.